Good morning, world. I'm Steve Rao, the host of Pod TV's World Edition. Live from the All America city of Morrisville in North Carolina, the eighth largest state in the United States of America. Pod TV has joined Roku Network, and we will be streaming these soon, these World Edition shows. Our content is going up. We'll be on an international television station, Roku, and we are so proud of our team for that great achievement. I never thought I would be hosting an international TV show, so you never know. You might sometimes get what you don't ask for, and it's an honor. On World Edition, we talk about global affairs, innovation, and continue our discussion of the pandemic and where we're going in the new phase of the pandemic. Today, we're going to dedicate our show to the State of the Union. Yesterday evening at 9 p.m. from the United States House of Representatives, Joseph R. Biden, the 46th president of our nation, delivered the State of the Union. He closes his address by saying that the State of the Union was strong, reminded us that America could be defined by one word, as he had said during his campaign, possibilities, and that united, together, Americans have been able to come back from even worse times, and that better days are ahead. We saw a different Joe Biden last night, a confident one who looked more like a commander-in-chief, getting thunderous applause numerous times when he was rallying us to fight Russia, reminding Putin and Russia that this war will only make them weaker. He did not commit to troops, but he claimed credit for all of us and the Western European allies for sending ammunition and support to the people of Ukraine, and said that they are an inspiration for their fight for democracy. What I wanted to talk about today is the other side of Joe Biden we saw last night, which is much more a focus on foreign affairs. Before I get to that, I will say that from a COVID perspective, he pretty much said we were going to head out to a new normal now, an end of the pandemic as we have known it, with him, the vice president, Pelosi, all having no masks, and most of the Congress and senators with no masks. I mean, so it looks like the pandemic, through body language, is over. But let me close on my monologue with some insight I want to talk about today. Up until now, much of Joe Biden's defense of democracy, as he's called it, has been focusing inward on the United States of America. In 2019, when he announced his campaign, he vowed to defeat the threat of Donald Trump, which he said posed threats to the ideals of democracy in America. He said, quote, "The core values of the nation, our standing in the world, and our democracy, everything that has made America is at stake." At 2020, when he accepted the nomination, he began his speech by quoting the activist Ella Baker, saying, "Give people light and they will find a way." And he began the presidency as he took the oath of office, saying, "This is America's day. This is democracy's day." But much of this guy's career, this president's career, has been in foreign affairs. As a United States Senator, when he chaired the Foreign Affairs Committee, and as Vice President of the United States. In the State of the Union address last night, Biden tried to put these things together and show himself as a strong commander-in-chief, one with the international experience to build coalitions, to challenge democracy, and to remind the American people that better days are ahead if we are united. What I noted different in this presidential speech as we begin to bring in our panel is there was a lot of bipartisan applause, not as many boos, and Americans perhaps giving this guy, the scrappy guy from Scranton, a chance. A man who has come back from enormous tragedy in his life, losing a wife and baby, and as he talked about last night, losing his son Bo to cancer, another disease that he would like to rid the world of. Time and time again, the American people have counted Joe Biden out. He never thought he'd be the president, but here he is. We will see what happens, whether the State of the Union is as strong as he says it is. And we didn't talk about inflation, but we'll talk about that as well. We'll cover all of these topics. But Mr. President, we look forward to watching now the new phase of your presidency, one where you can maybe use the pulpit to spread good news, to be positive, and show the country that you are the one, Commander-in-Chief and President. With us today, we have Mark Lee.
Glad to be here. Glad to have watched that whole lovely. Well, I didn't watch the whole, but I did watch part of the speech and the State of the Union and all of that. And of course, we've got Chris Greco. I'd love to hear some of his comments as well. And Nick has disappeared, but hopefully he'll be back later on and things along those lines. But Chris, when I was watching, and definitely Steve as well, definitely I saw that there were some things that were done that were what I called like I won't say softballs, but they were things that you're not going to really fight against. I mean, there's really no argument that people are going to make. A case in point being cancer, because he definitely went very hard on the thing about wanting to fight cancer and even take on pharma and things along those lines. But that's very easy to say, not always as easy to do, as Chris, as you know from your military experience and things along those lines. And then, of course, even his talk about some of the things around police versus Black Lives Matter, or police versus justice, and not wanting to defund the police but support the police. But there are some people in the activist community who would like to have heard about accountability, because definitely they are not necessarily saying that they want to have the police not be fully have their ways of being able to govern us in terms of law, but they would also like to be knowing that there are some accountable folks out there, since there have been several incidents over the last several years where there has been police misconduct and some that have led to murders and all of that. So that's some of the things that I know some of my activist friends were looking for that they didn't necessarily get in the speech and all of that. And I know that even some of the gun rights activists were glad to hear him, kind of make his usual joke about what deers might be wearing Kevlar vest and things, and that's become like a running joke and all of that. And I don't know that many people want assault rifles, or for that matter, that they want a lot of. He did talk about immigration as well, because he did say that he would like to maybe open the borders more and definitely support those dreamers that are here in the area. But at the same time, if they are criminals and they're part of the cartel, they must go back to wherever they came from. And he said that very plainly and very strongly. So that was just some of my quick observations, including watching some of the people from Texas that were speaking on one of the networks after the speech was done and all of that. But I'd love to hear.
Well, let me go to let's start there. So I try to sum up the best I could the State of the Union, but the bottom line, Chris, is he started the Union address with about 10 minutes of the address. It was a short State of the Union, 1 hour, really focused on Russia. I didn't commit to the use of any forces or presence there of military forces, but did basically say that Russia would be weaker after this war, that we were going to do more with sanctions. Obviously, we talked yesterday about the ruble down 20% from the euro. We know what happens, is going to be cash left in the system. What do you think about, did he talk enough about foreign policy strategy, or do you think it was enough just to stand strong with his decision that we're not going to, or do you think the president needs to be doing more from that perspective?
Well, the president is only one man, and I get all that. A couple of things that I just want to comment on, Mark, based on some of your comments, was one is that there were no masks last night in the House of Representatives. Steve, you made that reference too. Funny that all of a sudden, and this is all of a sudden now, this is not some month-long thing, that the House of Representatives physician comes up and says, there's no reason to wear masks. Just so happens that it happens like a week or 2 days or whatever it is before the State of the Union. All of a sudden, there's no masks. It's like, see, I mean, and the media loves this stuff. The media sits there and says, see, there's no masks. See, the COVID stuff, it's going by the wayside now, folks. It's no longer a matter of emergency. We're getting down on the deaths. We're getting down on this. We're getting down. And I'm a data analyst guy. I can make data whatever you want. I can make it so that COVID-19 is gone. I can make it show that it is totally wiped out by percentages. But so you can make data whatever you want it. And CDC, I trust. To tell the truth, I do trust the CDC, although their guidance is weird, but their data is really good because I use their data a lot. So that to me was kind of like a message, kind of like, hey, look, Democrats are in charge. We're fixing the COVID. Don't worry about that. You notice it was kind of very briefly that he mentioned COVID. The main thing he mentioned was the idea of foreign and then domestic areas. And is the president doing enough? Right now he is. Could he have done more in the beginning? Oh yeah. As a vice president, he could have told Obama, "We're not going to give him Crimea. We're not going to let him annex Crimea." He could have fought that the way they're fighting it right now. Full committed sanctions on this guy. And let me tell you, if he would have had that in 2014, by 2016, 17, he would have rethought any more annexation of anything.
Yeah, exactly. And Chris, thank you so much for that. So,
Hold on just 1 second. We do also want to bring in Sasha Starr, who is our buddy from Canada, who does a great broadcasting, does a lot of publicity, is also a chess master and a number of other things, and all along those lines. I did have a question for Chris, and I'm glad that Sasha is here as well. One of my questions that I heard in terms of comments from other people was, he talked about sanctions. He talked about a number of sanctions, but there is a major sanction that apparently we're not doing that we may want to do, because apparently there's a lot of our oil that's coming from Russia. And I was wondering your thoughts about that, because he didn't even touch on that. And I haven't even heard him say that he's going to sanction that part of the oil and do more domestic productions. He kind of alluded to it, but that is an issue that folks have been raising, the amount of oil that we as the West and even here in America get from Russia.
If we go back to refining our own oil, we go against the climate change accords. So we had to, by saying we're going to do climate change, we cannot produce the amount of oil that we produced before. We can't produce the amount of steel. We can't produce the amount of aluminum. We can't do any of that as long as we abide by the climate change accords. So that is an issue. But let me say something right here, right now. And Sasha, you're gonna agree with me on this. I know it's going to be a different approach. You will not stop Putin. You can sanction his haircuts. You can sanction whatever you want. You will not stop him. He is in Ukraine, and Ukraine will fall. Now, before you get into that, let me tell you something. It's going to fall. It's going to fall probably within the next month, 2 months. It's gone. But let me tell you what Putin is going to do. He's going to make what Hitler did with Yugoslavia. You're going to have a partisan, a resistance in Ukraine that is going to hold up divisions and divisions and divisions of Belarus and Russia. They're going to put more money and more people and more equipment into there, and it's going to get blown up. Soldiers are going to get killed. It's going to be total and complete sabotage everywhere. The Ukrainians are not. They may back off and say, "Okay, we're going to lose the country," but we're not. We're still Ukrainians, and we're going to get our country back. Now, it may take us 10 years. It may take us 15. But the Soviets, and I call them Soviets because that's basically what they are right now. The Soviets will be gone out of Ukraine, the same way they're gone out of Czechoslovakia, the same way they've gone out of Hungary, the same way they've gone out of Poland. But let me make something very clear also, and I'm sorry, just 30 more seconds. When the Soviet Union invaded Czechoslovakia, they didn't do it alone. They had Bulgaria, Poland, and Hungary with East German logistics support in 1968. When they took that country, the Prague Spring was just taking place, and reforms by Alexander Dubček was just coming into play. They had decided they're not going to do that, and they went in there. And that's the same thing they're trying to do with Belarus. They're saying, okay, we're going to take these puppet states, and we're going to go in there, and we're going to take Ukraine. We're going to get our coalition together, and we're going to go in there. So there's nothing, honest to God, we can do whatever we want to do. The thing that I would not do is I would not send money to Ukraine electronically. And Sasha, I know that your guys in Canada are doing that. I would not do that. And I'll tell you one thing, the Russians are good cyber attack people. They're going to intercept those funds, and they're going to use them for their own purposes. I'd be very careful about sending money in there, except good hard cash or something that they can use right away. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sasha. Welcome to the show. And I guess we were talking about the State of the Union, and the first part of his address, was about Ukraine and Russia. We didn't really. Basically, what the president said was that they were going to hold strong with sanctions. That eventually this war would make Russia weaker, but he did not really commit that we're going to be sending any forces. He thanked the allies for working with him. But what are your thoughts about what the president's strategy is? Should he be talking more about policy towards Russia, or is it enough to just do what he's doing?
I've noticed during his speech yesterday that the only time when both Republicans and Democrats supported him and were applauded, rounds of applause, and so on, it was when he was talking about Ukraine and Putin. That's the only time. And I think maybe that is, he should have, of course, spent much more time to address that issue, because maybe this is what may unite America and finish all this garbage wars between Democrats and Republicans. Maybe. Now, speaking about the war, the some cities Russians already infiltrated, and the first thing what Russian soldiers are doing once they have access to a city core, they are going to stores to get some food. They are immediately snatch all the salami, mostly meat products or so on, and they are eating that products right in the store. The products that they have, and they've been supplied by Russians, they have expiration date of 2015.
Well,
These liars and murderers are grabbing their own army. There are already over 5,000 people, Russian people, died. Young guys, 20 years old, something. So their corpses, their bodies are all over Ukraine, and Russians refuse to take their bodies and ship it back for funerals, so their mothers and relatives could at least give them the last
Yes.
that's right.
last
Well,
right to this. So this is a state of affair. Now, addressing what Chris just said, that Ukraine will fall. There's no such scenario exist, period. How Ukraine, country of 44 million people, most of them by now, even girls, 20 years old, 17 years old girls, they are all have arms. They have Kalashnikovs, they have grenades, they have. Look at what happened yesterday when the column of tanks
Yep.
was advancing toward Kiev. 10, 11 years old boys with Molotov cocktail, they immediately burned first tank. So the second could not go anywhere. And then they burned third tank. Now the second tank is stuck between two burning tanks on one side and another side. So all the column went back.
right.
I don't care how much more column they will invent. Do you see Russians? They don't have. They need about 2 million people army to not only invade Ukraine but also hold to Ukraine, hold to every city, every street, every door, every basement, and because the death will be there everywhere. Russians are being just killed. You know
Yeah.
what Ukrainian people are going to do to Russians? They will kill them. They will not even take them into.
But the Russian
No.
people, before we get into some other part of the address, the Russian people must be very upset. I mean, if they're concerned about being able to get cash out of their ATM machines, we know what happens when the value of the ruble is going down so much, assets are being frozen. I mean, Sasha, is that, or when you're living in a dictatorship, do you just, that's just the way it is, right? I mean, one guy is making the decision for all these people.
Putin is being hated by not only Russian, by all world, but especially Russia. Because Russia was reasonably prosperous country with the energy prices going higher and higher. So essentially, even they don't produce much besides the oil and gas, some metals. But they could buy actually anything from the West. They could
Thank
buy
you.
all the
Oh,
iPhones We can buy everything, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's a great point. Well, I'm going to go back to a point Chris Greco just made, but and I think it reminded us during the address there were some areas of the address where there was some bipartisan kind of applause. One was the funding of the police. Both Republicans and Democrats stood up. The second one was the president announced Intel investing $100 billion in a manufacturing plant with salaries about $135,000 a year. That was big news. Standing up to insulin drug prices, trying to cap the cost of 35. Had a young boy there, I think his name was Josh, who just celebrated his birthday. And then of course his challenging of curing cancer, addressing the troops, and where he believes that his son Beau Biden got cancer when he was in Kosovo. But let's start with funding the police, and then I want to go to COVID. Actually, before I do that, I did want to make one comment to something Chris said. I found it very interesting that nobody was wearing masks last night. And, we just had a council meeting last week where we were trying to wonder about whether we were going to have masks, whether we're not going to have masks. And people are still wearing masks when we go into City Hall. And I don't like wearing a mask. And when I see the president of the United States and these other people not wearing masks, I'm sitting there going, why am I wearing? So I actually put my masks away now, and I'm going outside to places without masks. And people are looking at me real funny, but I'm like gonna take the lead on that. But let's start with funding the police. What do you all think about that? Do you think that's an issue that everyone can rally together, or do you think it's a political move on his part?
I mean, it's definitely a political move. There was a couple of things that he did that folks found interesting and everything. I'm still not sure exactly, because I heard a commentator make this comment yesterday, and I kind of agree with them, who the target audience was, because a lot of the things that he was saying, it sounded like he was trying to address some bipartisan efforts and trying to rally some of the people on the Republican side, as Sasha alluded to. He also made some digs on the progressives and things along those lines. But with his approval rating as low as it is, I'm not sure that he actually resonated with a lot of those folks. And I'm still trying to figure out whether, like I said, it was an effective speech in the sense of being a speaker. And he has definitely showed that fighting spirit, as you said, definitely in that sense, Steve, but I'm not sure that it actually resonated with the audience. I mean, they definitely heard some things that they were interested in, such as police, and definitely made it clear that he would not defund the police and would give them the aid that they need to hire more officers and to definitely run their police forces around the country. But a lot of folks are also wanting to hear what he's going to do about police accountability. And that was the other thing that he brought up. And he also brought up another popular issue, which is that he said it was time to pass the Lewis Act, which is about voting. So he definitely made it very clear that he was very much wanting to stop the shenanigans of some people in terms of stopping the voting or making voting harder. So he did make that clear and all along those lines. So it was kind of a mixed message that I was getting in some senses and all along those lines.
Fantastic. Chris, what are your thoughts about funding the police?
Well, coincidentally, I just had a relative, a close relative in Texas who's involved in a shooting. And he's a police officer. And basically they have, and I totally understand how, in fact, a really good book, a really good book to read. And I keep telling you this book, and I keep telling you this book, Malcolm Gladwell, How to Talk to Strangers. Oh, yeah. It's an unbelievable book. And one of the things they talk about is the situation where the one police officer, white police officer, in a Midwestern state, stopped a black female and found that she fit the profile for a drug dealer. And basically, she was coming from Illinois, going to the Midwest because she had a job, and she was living in her at until she got the job. And at one point, he said she was upset about stuff, and he was trying, at one point he says, so tell me, is everything okay? And she started to tell him what was going on and situations, whatever else. And he said, "Are you through?" Now there was no camera, but he said, "Are you through?" And she's that, that's not the way to talk to people. So I think if funding the police includes giving them the ability to talk to people and the ability to deflate possible problems, then that's the way to go. Unfortunately, in this situation that I'm a part of, because it's a family member, basically the guy came out of an apartment. He was with his partner, and he told them, he's black. He had been called by, there was a 911 call by his girlfriend saying he was trying to break into the apartment. He comes down the steps. They said, "Hey, guy, how's everything going?" He starts running. He drops a gun. He picks up the gun. They say, "Drop the gun, drop the gun." He points it at them. They said, "Drop the gun, drop the gun, drop." They did not open fire. They did not fire their weapons. They pulled him until he started firing, and they let loose on this guy. And, he kept firing. He was on the ground after being hit, and he kept firing. It's all in the cameras. And so they went to him. They kicked the gun away. They immediately started to give him first aid. The woman who called 911 came down yelling at my relative, saying, "You shot my boyfriend. How could you have shot my boyfriend?" I mean, this guy had a weapon. He fired. There's situations, I think, that people have to understand. You become a cop. You be a cop. You go out there. You do this crap every single day and take crap from people every single day. And then think of how much you're getting paid. And it's just, I'm all for funding police, and I'm all for making it better on both sides. Deflating situations and crises on both sides of there, both from the cop end and from the citizen end. And I think if you do that, I think it's going to be so much better. But right now it's all talk,
Before we go to other issues, so what did we, 2 weeks ago we had the worst president of the United States shows. What is your grade of the president's State of the Union? Starting with you, Mark, how would you rate the president's address last night?
Like I said, there were some weaknesses in it. I didn't see the whole speech, so it's going to be hard to give it a full grade. It's kind of like grading a half a paper if you've only seen it. But from what I did see, I would definitely give it probably somewhere around the area of a B plus. I wouldn't say that was in the A or an A minus, but probably like somewhere between a B plus and a regular B. I would not give it a C, and I definitely wouldn't give it an F, because he definitely showed some of that fighting spirit that you were talking about, and it definitely was showing that he was ready to engage folks. I mean, a lot of folks do know that he has speech impediments, and so that was definitely highlighted, and I'm sure that those speech impediments probably get worse as you get older and all along those lines. But that's something he's been fighting for years, and I think that is something that most people that know him know that those will occasionally come out and things along those lines.
Yeah,
but
he's able to control it, though, which is good. Sash, I don't know if you watched the speech last night, but do you have any opinions of how the president did last night holding? I'm giving him a second chance. I got to be honest with you. I needed to hear this president last night because he showed me that he might possibly be able to pull this off. What are your thoughts?
Well, I thought that I believe it's American people who will decide whether he deserves second chance or not. The only thing is, I observe his speech. I was listening to that for all hour. I think that he is a real statesman. That's obvious. I don't think that Republican Party has any one person close to him to the level of delivery, intensity, the material that he used for his speech. I don't think they have one, but again, it's up to American people to decide.
Okay.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Anyway, I think he did better, but he has to do more of it. And obviously, the Republicans are gonna. You still have Marjorie Taylor Greene and others that were.
And apparently she and Lori, and I'm trying to think of that particular person's last name, were the ones that did a little bit of heckling from the audience, and even had some of their fellow Congress people that wanted to kick them out, because I know that I believe it was Marjorie Taylor Greene that was like the wall, and it was one of the other ones that was shouting the number of people that were killed in Afghanistan. There might have been a couple of other incidences as well, but that is not showing deference or the whole decor that should be going on in that situation. Steve, if I can toss it to you really quickly, one of the things that he did bring up, and some people were surprised that he brought it up and some people were not, but I know that it's one of your favorite topics. He was definitely very strong on infrastructure. So I was wondering your thoughts about the infrastructure element of his speech as well.
Yeah, he talked about the infrastructure, the fact that I think they're going to build over 1,500 bridges in America, rebuilding these old bridges, millions of new highway, millions of miles of new highway, and a real commitment to the fact that finally, we have worked together in a bipartisan manner to invest in American infrastructure. And I think this was a big win for this president. I think it's interesting that he highlighted it in the State of the Union because, infrastructure is something that you can get away from the partisan politics. That was one where he got the bipartisan applause. So, Mark, I think it's an incredible achievement. Now, the question becomes, will we be able to execute on those promises? Will there be shovel-ready projects? Will we see more light rail? Will we see more transit? Will we see dollars or new stretches of roads and highways? Or is it going to get cut up in the government bureaucracy that and the increasing amount of regulation we have, that things just don't get as done as quickly as they did when even Roosevelt was president, right? Now, I don't know what Chris thinks about that, but I do think, or Sasha, but I do believe infrastructure was a big win for this president last night. Chris, what do you think? And then Sasha.
So I'd grade this guy like Mark. I'd give him a B or a B plus on words, not on actions, on words. So I think that's a big part of what's going on. I heard all this crap about the cancer moonshot, him and Obama. Yeah, the cancer moonshot. We're going to do this cancer moonshot. And he brings it up every time. It's like, what has been done? I want facts. I've been looking at everything having to do with the cancer moonshot. What kind of funds have been levied for cancer research? What kind of things have been done? Have hospitals been given supplemental funds? What exactly happened? And the excuse? COVID. We had to spend all kind of money on COVID. We couldn't do cancer moonshot stuff. So, hey, cancer is still the number two cause of death in the United States. Number one is heart disease. I have heart disease. I've had it since I've been 35. I had a triple bypass when I was 45. I had an angioplasty when I was 35. Let me tell you something. Heart disease, I can understand why it kills you. So there's a situation, and hypertension's part of that and all that. Mm-hmm. Stop giving speeches. Start doing. Start getting things done. Like I said, the words last night, I had a hard time arguing with stuff. It's like, yep, I believe in infrastructure. Yep, I believe in funding the police. Yep, I believe in getting rid of cancer in my lifetime. Yep, I believe in all that stuff. It's hard to sit there and say, nope, but it's the actions that go along with that. And Steve, I'm telling you, if you, I have this funny feeling you're not like that. When you say something, you're going to do it. And that's when you and look at all the things.
And when I don't say something, I don't do it.
Exactly.
Exactly. Right now, I'm dealing with a situation where people are angry with me that I'm not seeking. I'm going to be making a formal announcement here soon, but I'm not seeking a position in the State House because I'm just not ready to make that commitment, and I don't want to go in and do something that I'm not completely committed to.
See,
and that's my style, and it doesn't, But some people, styles just throw everything up to the moon and something will stick. And I tend to be more cautious and want to build a reputation of being able to show my body work, being able to show the things I'm doing, how am I arriving at my decisions. So lots of promises made, but, we'll see now whether he can get, I think the other big test is he did mention, and let's take a quick break about talking about the Supreme Court honoring Justice Breyer. The justice looked a bit emotional. I don't think he quite expected the president to acknowledge his years of service. And then he talked about Judge Ketanji Brown. So now let's see, after the State of the Union, the real sausage making, which is, are they going to be able to support? Mitch McConnell looked very serious, wasn't smiling. Kevin McCarthy as well, sort of standing there listening. Didn't see them standing up and applauding a lot. So only time will tell, right?
Yeah,
Whether this guy.
yeah, I was going to say it's interesting you said that and everything because the one thing as I was watching the parts of the speech that I did catch that it really resonated and I really thought about it and everything is that, and I love to hear Chris's thoughts about this, and even Sasha, is that in some ways he almost if you want to talk about it in debate terms or chess terms, it's like he almost painted the Republicans into a corner because a lot of the things that he was saying were things that are hard to disagree with. I mean, like Chris said, it's hard to say that you're actually going to stand up and say that more. Uh, I want more cancer in society, or I want more
Right.
people that are not working, and I want more. I want worse roads, and I'm saying things like that that would be almost a counter that they would have to say and things along those lines. The only argument that they can make is what you just did, Chris, which is how are you going to fund what you want, and if you want it, how is it going to be done effectively? But in a lot of ways, I thought that it was an effective way to in that sense, paint the opposition almost into a corner because a lot of those things, even the things around weapons, you can't really say that you want AK-47s because it doesn't really make sense as he's made that joke and he's made it several times, at least 2 or 3 that I'm aware of. You can't really say that you want to take an AK-47 to go get a deer because, like I said, that doesn't really make much sense.
I'm a hunter, so and also the people in Ukraine are probably happy they have AK-47s at this point in time. They'd like some more Kalashnikovs, let me tell you. So I mean, everyone I see in Ukraine that is fighting against the Russians, they got Kalashnikovs. And let me tell you something about the AK-47 rifle from a military standpoint. The AK-47 is extremely good. It was so much better than the M16 during the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. Also, the things that the Soviets did. We found this out later on, is that when the Cold War was at its peak, the Soviets had an adapter. They could take their weapons. Let's say they found a U.S. or a NATO person that was dead, and they had a weapon there. They didn't want their weapon. They wanted their ammo. The ammo did not fit into the Soviet weapon. They had an adapter where they could take their clips, put it in the adapter, put it in their weapon, and it was fireable. And we did not have that. And it was interesting. Once ran out of ammo, we ran out of ammo. But if they took more things, and this is where I guess it's nefarious in a way, almost like devilish. But they figured out a way to use anybody's ammo on that stuff. I mean, what a way to do that, Go ahead, Sasha. Sorry.
Russia, beside being an exporter, or used to be exporter of oil, gas, and metals, another area where they were quite successful is selling of arms. And a major seller there was AK-47, exactly. So that's why they almost perfected that. So Ukrainians are very grateful for them.
Yes.
Making good AK-47s.
Ironic,
yeah, a little bit. But Chris, agree with me on something. If you remember Stalingrad, the Germans at that time were so superior to Russians in every which way. Their machine guns were better, everything was better. But you see, when it came time when they had to get out of their tanks, and they had to start door to door, basement to basement operations. And that's where they stuck and finally were defeated. Don't you see that that's exactly what's going to happen with Ukraine when they will get into cities like especially Kyiv? And they will go door to door and building to building, and they will be killed.
Oh yeah. Well, they're going to suffer. They're going to suffer.
It's impossible. They need 2 million strong army to do this door-to-door combat. These people, especially they have these youngsters whose dream is to get to the store and get some salami to eat. They're hungry. It's still winter there. I'm not even sure they have winter clothes. I don't think that they are. Some of them are coming. They already got interrogated by Ukrainians. They were not aware even that they are in Ukraine. They were thought that they were what they were told that they are going to to practice in Belarus or elsewhere. So it's just some kind of exercises. And all of a sudden, when they found out that they are in Ukraine, they said, what the hell, Ukraine? What are we doing here in Ukraine? That's why they're being taken sometimes without fight.
I mean, I'll tell you, let's take a comparison between the United States and Russia right now, because a lot of people sit there and go, "Oh, United States is not like Russia," really, because my mother was Czech, my grandfather was Carpathian Russian, and he told me, and I said this on the show before, he said, if you have a cow and a Soviet does not have a cow, he does not want your cow. He wants your cow dead. This is what you think about this. There's Russia with Ukraine. Ukraine was doing fantastic. They had a great standard of living. They liked what they were doing. They had a great population. They had beautiful cities. They had whatever. And there was Russia sitting back going, you know something? Enough of this. We're gonna take them down a notch, or maybe 5 or 6 notches. It doesn't matter what they destroy. It matters that now they're feeling the same misery that we're feeling. So now we're good. And I hope the United States does not go that route. If the United States goes that route, that's going to be an issue.
No, he definitely hears you on all that thing. I do have a question for you, and it's actually more for Sasha. One of the things that people have been really surprised by, and I don't know that you've been surprised by it, because, like you said, the Ukraine is fighting apparently for the entire, fighting for the entire Western world and all of that. But in articles I've been reading, there's been a lot more dissent. As a matter of fact, I had an article, I was going to pull it up, but I'm not going to do it right now. Maybe I'll bring it up tomorrow. But it was talking about the dissent that was coming out of Russia, and that a lot of these folks are being very bold in their dissent. I mean, they're protesting right in front of Putin in terms of like being meters away. I mean, I think that one of the guys that was arrested and even poisoned at his trial spoke up against this war and things along this line. So have you been surprised at the amount of dissent coming from the Russian people? I actually watched yesterday a YouTube video of the Ukrainian president where he was actually making a direct appeal to the Russian people, basically saying that the similarities that they have and also the differences and what was really going on, and even made the point that they would probably never see this video on Russian TV, or as a matter of fact, he knew they would never see it, but he was hoping that they would see it on social media and that they would continue to rise up in their own country.
I don't know.
What can I say? What makes a difference to Russian 20 years old boys being killed mercilessly in Ukraine? Meaning opinions of social media idiots, one way or another. What makes a difference? What I'm surprised is how Russian people scared of Putin and his regime. Take mothers of these young boys being killed. For a woman to lose his son, it's a life tragedy. Basically, their life is not worth much after that happened. Yet, they're not going to the streets to protest because they are scared that they will be arrested, they will be taken to KGB, they will be taken here and there, and maybe there will be, who knows, maybe a torture.
And that's, yeah.
But it doesn't matter, you already lost your life. You are now destitute, you lost all your savings. Economy of Russia is being killed now for the next 55 years. Finish. There is no economy. There is no oil. There is no gas. There is no metals. There is no cash reserves. There is nothing. It's a misery, and the country is really dying. And people even don't understand what's happening to them because, you know, that they closed all the liberal TV channels. Like there was Rain, there was Echo Moscow. They're all closing this. However, they're still working on internet. So you cannot see them on TV or listen on radio, but they're in internet that they can't close or decided not to close or so on. So
well, I mean, this is incredible, and I think
that was sorry, that was kind of the question and the point that I was making. I was wondering if Chris had heard similar things because I'm actually hearing that there are many people in Russia that are actually going to the streets, even though they know that they are probably going to get arrested and things of that nature. So, like I said, I'm not in Russia. I maybe have definitely you as a Russian friend, and I have some other friends that are of that background of either Russian, Ukrainian, or some of the other Eastern Bloc countries. But like I said, the reports that I'm hearing is that there are quite a few folks that are actually doing the protests that folks may not expect in an Eastern Bloc nation. But Chris, you were in the military, you were in that kind of secret society, for lack of a better term. And also, I was wondering, were you hearing similar things where folks are doing more protesting than maybe even Putin expected?
Well, I think what's happening, and Sasha will definitely agree with me on this, is that there's probably tons of protests in Russia, but it all depends what the media is reporting. Same as the United States. So if the media reports it, or if it comes out of social media, that's fine. I would kind of have that as a veracity point. I'd kind of like between a 5 and a 6 out of 10 truthfulness. But what you're going to hear out of TASS, really, you're going to hear out of the TASS news. Out of the TASS news agency, I can almost guarantee you this is what's going to happen. They're going to say Russia is making great headways against the Ukrainians, and we are taking cities. Look at Kharkiv. We've taken the city, and we're moving forward. And they'll show tanks moving and soldiers waving from the tanks, and having steak for dinner and the whole 9 yards. But let me tell you something, slowly but surely, and I think Sasha's right on this. I think it's so slowly but surely, you're going to have more and more people that are going to, first of all, the West is basically Putin's in the toilet, right? But the bottom line is how much can we make this guy hurt? And I'm telling you, the only way he's going to stop, and Sasha, I get it. They're going to go house to house, whatever else. Putin doesn't care. They're not going to his house unless he's deposed or dead. They are going to take this to whatever conclusion it's going to be. And they're not going to use nukes, because I think once he starts putting his finger on the button, I think even stalwart Russians are going to sit there and say, no way. We are not going to have this guy throw a nuke at another country. It's just
totally agree with you on that, Chris. I've did my own investigation. What is the likelihood of Putin being able to use nukes? Okay, so-called red button. What the red button actually does? Red button is a command. He is not firing missiles by pressing the red button. It's just a command that goes now to next level. Next level, it's Minister Shoigu and Gerasimov. So these two, the command goes even farther than down. Now it goes to the commanders of fronts, of Russian fronts. So now they have to analyze that. Then they have to give command much farther to the people who actually are going to fire this. So there are so many levels, and it's just impossible that these people will fire these missiles, understanding. So what they're doing, they're fighting for Mr. Putin and no one else. And you were right, remember The Hunt of Red October? That's a movie. Exactly.
Yeah, good movie, huh? Well, The Hunt for Red October, the reason I brought that up with Sasha is The Hunt for Red October. Watch it with Alec Baldwin and Sean Connery. Yeah. The KGB officer that Connery, he's the commander, the captain of the submarine, the Soviet submarine. The commander of that submarine kills a KGB agent in order to take over the submarine. The KGB agent's name in the movie, as well as the book, Putin. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
Fantastic.
I did not know that.
That is one hell of a movie. I tell you.
It is. Yeah.
It is a great movie. Just Steve, just really quickly, and I know we definitely have to keep informed of what's going on the Ukraine. There's no doubt that this is the present issue, but I am wondering, as we were talking about Biden as well, there's a major race going on in Texas, and I was wondering what your thoughts are about that, and whether
I will talk about. Let's spend the next few minutes on that before we close out. And I will be live from PBS Carolina tomorrow for a special edition on Russia and Ukraine. And so I'll be there live from the studio. So tomorrow's show, We will be probably talking about the same issues, and I'll kind of ask the same questions to this panel. So be prepared, but we will spend most of the hour on Ukraine. Sorry for the international guys crossing in on your show, but I figure, hey, it's just a warm up act. Real quickly, in Texas, the governor's race will be the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, versus, yes, Beto O'Rourke, former United States congressman, former candidate for the U.S. Senate against Ted Cruz, and former presidential candidate. Still trying to figure out how Robert Francis Rourke became Beto. I've been looking and looking and looking, and he is from El Paso, Texas, and he's a progressive Democrat. And this is going to be interesting to see whether I don't think it's going to bode well for him based on the numbers we're seeing in these off-year elections in very red states, but we'll see. Maybe it's the third time's a charm here, but ran for Senate, lost. Ran for president.
Interesting. It's going to be interesting. Like it's going to be interesting here in North Carolina because I know that I was actually talking to a Politico earlier, and they were talking about some of the candidates running for Senate here, including somebody that you have mentioned to me, Valerie Fouché, who's apparently got the endorsement of Mike Woodard and some other people.
Yeah,
so
I think right now what I'm hearing on the ground is that Fouché is the front runner against Naya Alam because of these key endorsements, and that even though Alam has raised a lot of money, a lot of the Muslim and the Asian population are actually in the Wake County part. And so I think that this is what I'm hearing, right? But it does seem that Fouché is getting a lot of the key endorsements with Woodard and others. So we'll see what happens. But with that being said, in North Carolina, and this is a surprise to many people, most people look as the Attorney General, Josh Stein, a Harvard graduate, a Dartmouth graduate, was only a year behind Obama in law school, state senator, attorney general, as the preemptive heir to become the governor of North Carolina. But apparently recent polls show that in a head-to-head election, Stein would lose to Mark Robinson, which is quite amazing.
Where is McCrory in this whole picture? Because isn't he running for something as well?
U.S. Senate, yeah.
But a governor, a lieutenant governor, who was working in manufacturing, came in and gave one speech on YouTube about guns, went from being no name to the lieutenant governor, made a statement that transgenders and homosexuals are filth. I refuse to apologize for a black man, the first black man to hold the lieutenant governor, is leading or is a very dangerous position to be the next.
No. He didn't say, Steve, he never said that homosexuals and transphobe and everything were filth. He never said that. Take a look at the speech.
I don't know what he said. He
said basically that there were books that were in the library that and I get where you're coming from, Steve. I do. The idea is that when you start limiting books, when you start saying these books are not good, these books are good, I cringe because all I can think about is the book burning, in front of the in front of the Reichstag, But he was making a point in a church, and then they busted on him, and he doubled down. He says, I'm sorry, I'm a good Christian. I'm sorry, I guess he did all this.
So I'll repeat for the record. His quote for the record is that he said, "There's no reason." Here's the quote from Mark Robinson. Quote.
Sure.
There's no reason, and I mean, this is important. So this was made in a church. He said, there's no reason anybody anywhere in America should be telling any child about transgenderism, homosexuality, any of that filth. And yes, I called it filth. And you don't like that I called it filth? Come see me.
I hear what you're saying, but Chris and Steve, just really quickly, and I want to come back to I want to come back to the president's speech. Was anybody surprised that he actually rose that conversation onto the national level and actually introduced words that haven't been put in the speech lexicon in the past? Because he actually gave support for the transgender population. He also gave support for the LGBT population. And I know that this is something he's done in the past, but this is the State of the Union. So I was just wondering, anybody here surprised that he brought that into the conversation?
Not at all.
No, I think it's become more accepted. And first of all, for the record, I just want to say that I wasn't trying to rebut Chris Greco. I was trying to honor the fact that it's important also to look at the real words that are said. So in this case,
good, Steve. You're good.
In this case, he said filth, but he was saying that he was calling the stuff that they were talking about filth, and said that I don't want my kids or our kids to be
Right.
doing that. But I do think he crossed the line a little bit. Maybe as lieutenant governor calling a specific person filth. He didn't come and say homosexuals and transgender is filth, but he says telling them that it's okay is filth. But at the end of the day, I think that this is more accepted in mainstream now, and you're starting to see the LGBT, the transgender community having rights that they can stand up for. And for the president, yeah, first time in my lifetime I can remember a president of the United States using these words in a in a presidential address.
No, it's the first time, and I know we're getting ready to wind down. The other two things that I was going to bring up, and maybe we got time, y'all can talk about it with tomorrow and everything. But apparently, it comes back to another issue you mentioned, which is COVID. Apparently, vaccine protection, and we're getting demasked and everything, which means that probably the schools will be demasked. But apparently, the CDC, in a recent study, has said that the protection decreases in adolescents after 5 months. So does that mean that kids, and like I said, my nephews are teenagers, so 13 and 14 in August, so they're not quite both teenagers, but they will soon be teenagers once we hit to August, both of them. But right now one is and one isn't. But does that mean that they're going to have to get a shot like every 6 months or every year? If it's
I think, Mark, I think you brought up higher metabolism, man. Hey, I wish I had a metabolism of a teenager. I wish I had a metabolism of a 50-year-old. But basically, what happens is that metabolism, especially in teenagers, is so high that they're moving through that. The vaccination protection moves through them very quickly. I get that. Give me 30 seconds. The only thing that I talk about when I talk about masks or anything else, and look, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, but let me tell you something. If more people, and this is just my opinion, if more people would have worn masks before COVID, when they were sick or had, coughing or whatever else, and I was in government buildings when these jerk-offs would come in and they'd be sneezing on things and doing whatever. If they would have worn masks, then I think we would have been more accustomed to wearing masks when something like this happened. And I think if that, the same with vaccinations, we should get vaccinations every year. I'm in for vaccinations, man. I get my flu shot, my shingle shot. I get all that, pneumonia shots. I get all that stuff every year. And I think what you're saying, Mark, is do they have to have it every 6 months? I think that if they came out with a yearly vaccination program, that would be accepted by everybody in the United States, and they would sit there and say, okay, cool. Yearly vaccination, we're good to go.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and everything.
It's about that time. I wanted to just, first of all, thank you all for being on World Edition. We'll be live from PBS Carolina next week. Tomorrow. And Friday, I may be actually at a conference, so I may not be here for the show. But wanted to thank you all for being with us. And as we continue our discussion of Ukraine, Russia, from our family to yours, we pray for Ukraine, we pray for democracy, we pray for freedom. We thank the president for standing up there as a State of the Union, reminding us that we are the United States of America. Hopefully, as Chris Greco said, we can prove that with our actions more than our words. Are we united? Can we focus on what we have in common, which is the defense of freedom and democracy for all, at the same time respecting the differences we might have with each other? On the point of privilege, I want to thank everyone who's streaming in on Facebook about what I'm going to do with my future. What I've decided is I'm going to stay in the council for now, continue to do the job I was sent to do, and maybe in a year look at different opportunities. But it just definitely just want to campaign. Don't feel like stopping my life. Plus, I did find out that if I did file election tomorrow, I would not be allowed to be on any media or TV for the rest of the year. So there would be no World Edition, no PBS Carolina, no radio. So you're not legally allowed to be on any media platform. So I was also a factor in my decision because I would stop a part of my life I love so much. So I want to thank you all for your patience with me, and looking forward to a good year. Things will be continuing, and no campaign, not this year.
Yeah, sounds good. So we're getting ready to hit those lovely folks running around and getting on out of here. I know that later on this afternoon, Sasha has got a show and I've got a show as well. So we definitely both will have shows later on today. So I've got the online dinner party and Sasha's got his show as well that'll deal with investment. So I know that we'll both have things going on in that space.
Quick question: I got my haircut cut 2 weeks ago before I went on? Do I need to get my haircut, guys, or do I look okay?
No, you look good.
Okay.
You're good.
I got paranoid about the hair on the TV, although my electric shaver's working, so I just want to make sure. But yeah, hopefully, I guess I don't have enough hair on my head for it to grow back that fast. So
No, you're good, man.
Everything's
thank
good.
you all so much. We'll be back tomorrow live from PBS, which is always great to be from a live station in North Carolina. Thank you all so much.
Bye bye.
See you all. Bye bye.